What's up, everyone? Oh, we're back today for another family education support group. So after last week's technical difficulties, we are back with a new and improved Wi-Fi that I know is going to work really well because I quadruple checked it prior to this talk. And I also did a talk with our program participants this morning, and I got thumbs up all around. This is going to work well. So welcome back to the Family Education Support Group. This is a live stream. So if you're watching me talk right now at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm actually in my living room talking to you in this exact moment. And if you watch this later, I hope you find some value in this educational and informative content. And it is September 10th, 2022. Good morning, Bita. Good morning, Jim. And good morning in advance to anyone that's about to say good morning as I do my quick introduction. So my name is Param. I am the weekly facilitator of this group. I get different topics, different things to teach about, to talk about. It always relates back to the recovery process, and it always relates back to healing, transformation, education, information. And what's up, Eric? Good to see you, bud. Hossein, everyone's here. This is good. So today's going to be a talk that's kind of really paying attention to the times that we experience. And just for any type of background, I'm not like a historian. I don't have any type of historical background information, education, none of that stuff. But there was something that happened in the news here about 2 days ago that I just thought could be of some value to be able to inquire and learn a little bit about. So as I went into my research and as I went into my kind of middle of the night insanity as I get ready for these things, I started to learn some information, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is going to be very good for the Family Education Support Group. And I'll tell you guys what that is right now. So everyone, Mom, Dad, Dan, everybody, welcome. So about 2 days ago, I was at Aliso Niguel High School getting ready to speak to the junior varsity and varsity girls softball program. I've never spoke to a group of young females that are not related to mental health and addiction, but I did my best. And right before that happened, though, the instructor, it was a history teacher's class, and she was just blasted with all the pictures of like historical events going back from World War I, World War II, and it had all the royals in there and all that kind of stuff. And this teacher got like visibly upset and sad when heard the news that the Queen had passed away, Queen Elizabeth II. So, at the time I was, I wasn't too much into it. I did watch that show on Netflix years ago, and I thought it was fascinating, but I haven't been following it closely or anything like that. And to be honest, it didn't really, it wasn't too painful for me, but I started to look into the life because it was pretty historical. And when I went through some of the things that she said in life, all of a sudden I was like, wow, all of this could be applied to recovery. So that's what I want to do for you today. I want to be able to capture some words of wisdom by a human being that accomplished by all, however you want to look at it, a pretty impressive run. And so first I'm going to give you a few facts about Queen Elizabeth II. And then from there, I'm going to share some words of wisdom about Queen Elizabeth II that she's shared and apply those to our recovery process in this recovery community. I even did this for the program participants this morning. So imagine 8 o'clock in the morning, you wake up to me in the living room, just pumped and enthusiastic, getting ready to teach you about Queen Elizabeth II, the 96-year-old. So, hey, they got something out of it. I hope you get something out of it. And without any type of delay, let's get into it. So here's some fun facts about Queen Elizabeth II before I get into the part about recovery. The first part is she was queen for 70 years and 214 days, making her the longest reigning monarch ever of Great Britain, right? Ever. So she holds the record. And she was right behind Louis XIV of France for being the all-time just of the world, So that's pretty fascinating in itself right there. The second one, at her time of death, so 2 days ago, 9 out of every 10 human beings on the planet Earth have known of Queen Elizabeth II being in charge of Great Britain. 9 out of 10 people. They have not known a different type of Elizabeth that was there. That's all they knew. It gets pretty fascinating. She was queen for almost 27% of the United States history, almost 30% of all of the history of the United States, she was the queen of Great Britain. I think that's pretty fascinating. She ruled over 15 prime ministers and 14 United States presidents. She only didn't meet one of them, and that was Lyndon Johnson. But just think about everything that goes on through our history of all these years in this ever-changing world. She was always a constant, a constant figure. She traveled. This is so interesting. She traveled the world over 1 million miles, which is the equivalent of 40 journeys around the earth. She had 1 million frequent flyer miles. So I don't know. I think if anybody from United, anybody from American Airlines, anybody from any one of our airlines and stuff like that, British Airways is watching this, I think if any human being gets to 1 million miles, you should give them like a royal upgrade. That'd be kind of cool. A royal upgrade for anyone that travels 1 million miles or 40 times around the planet Earth. She was the well most traveled monarch of all time. At the age of 19, this is interesting. At the age of 19, she became the first female British royal to serve as an active duty military member. She drove and worked on a range of military vehicles during World War II. That doesn't happen. What kind of a royal goes down to where the other human beings are battling and struggling and fighting and being a part of that struggle? I mean, that shows something about the character. She was obsessed with corgi dogs. So as a dog lover, she had over 30 of them. The first one she had was named Dookie in 1933. So that's all that stuff. But we're not here for that. You're here for family education and support, right? So I have a list I picked out 10 of her most fascinating quotes that have been attributed to her over the years. And I think that for what it's worth, she had a lot of wealth, information, knowledge, wisdom that can be passed down from generation to generation. You see, because we only see what's portrayed to us, right? I mean, when you're at that level, it's not like I have a conversation with this person. I don't really get to know them. But if enough people say that this person had more humility, this person had a sense of humor, this person was willing to go down to the public and be able to shake people's hands and look at them in the eyes, there's probably something saying about that human being. And why not try to apply some of her teachings to addiction recovery, mental health recovery? So if anybody has any thoughts, feedbacks while I'm talking, feel free to. It's always an interactive, but I have all the quotes that I'm going to talk up ready for you. So the first one that I have here is, let me blow this up. It says, it's worth remembering that it is often small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change. Okay. A lot of us come into these rooms of recovery and healing, and we are somewhere in life and we are trying to get somewhere else in life. So we're in a dark, desperate place, oftentimes without any hope, without any type of connection to others, connection to self. And we want to go from here over here. And so many people try to just jump and leap and experience a whole different world, not knowing in order to cross that travel plane, you have to go small steps at a time. You see, when you take small steps in life, the little small victories, sometimes you look back and say, wow, look at the road I traveled. I can't believe I made it through all that. Here's another example. So let's say you want to go from California to New York. And that's thousands of miles in a drive. Nobody has ever been able to go from California to New York in one giant leap. If you're driving at nighttime in a really dark road, all you really see ahead of you is however long the headlights allow you to see. See, the road unveils itself 100, 200 yards at a time based on your headlights. Yet if you can have faith that those 100, 200 yards are going to get you closer to your destination, eventually the days go by and you find yourself in New York. There is no such thing as a giant leap in recovery. There just isn't. It's small daily victories. Something as small as just waking up and doing something contrary to the way you used to live your life. Contrary action is so powerful when it comes to it. I'm gonna put up some Jim's word of wisdom. So Jim's gonna go, he's gonna go back to back with the queen. Without small daily goals, you will never achieve the bigger goals in life. Absolutely, man. And that's the New York example is what we're talking about there. So the next one that I had from here, Queen Elizabeth II, we're honoring the life of someone that, 70 years, 7 decades of doing something is just is just awesome. So the next one she has right here said, Perhaps we make too much of what is wrong and too little of what is right. The trouble with gloom is that it feeds upon itself, and depression causes more depression. So, for example, this morning I was talking to our program participants, and when I talk to them, I'm talking to you because I swear there's no difference. Human beings are human beings. And sometimes people wake up in the morning, and you know what they focus on? Everything that's wrong in their life. They focus on the negative. They focus on what they don't have in life. They focus on the scarcity of life. When there's another choice, and that's to focus with what is right in life. Focus on the beauty of life. Focus on the abundance of life. Too many people in this world, they focus on that negative, right? And the problem with gloom, as she says, is that it feeds upon itself. So the more you focus on the negative, it starts to self-feed itself. The negative becomes more negative. The gloom, the darkness, the depression starts to magnify. So if that's something that you do, and remember, I've used this example, so forgive me for the few people here that have heard me say this. When I was in graduate school in 2014, there was a teacher that taught me this lesson visibly in a way that I couldn't dispute it. It was powerful. And here's what it was. I'll do the fastest version of it possible. The teacher sat us down, and there was about 20 graduate school students in this classroom. We got into groups of 3 or 4. She put up blank posters on the wall, 1900 to 1920, 1920 to 1940, 1940 to 1960, 1960 to 1980, 1980 to 2000, 2000 to present. She gave us markers and told our groups to go up to these posters and write down what you remember happened during that time. What you've read about, what you remember, what you've been taught. So we took our markers and we went up to these boards and we started to write, and we started to write, and we started to write. After a few minutes, she would say, switch. You go to the next poster and you start writing and writing and writing and writing. And you switch. So by the time everybody had a chance to go around the room and write everything they remembered or learned from that time frame. Then she had us sit down and look at the walls. What were the walls covered with? They were covered with wars, assassinations, catastrophes, the worst of all mankind. You see, my friends, if that's what we learn and what we do on a macro level, then what do you think you do yourself on a micro level? We are a part of that bigger system. So most people don't think about their past and reflect on their past and say, oh my God, it was all the beauty and the good and the blah, 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 blah. You know what they do? They focus on the negative, the resentments, the time someone let them down, the time someone yelled at them, all the negative stuff in life. Forgetting that there's a choice always. You either focus on what is wrong or you can focus on what is right. You can either focus on scarcity or you can focus on abundance. You can focus on what you don't have in life, or you can focus on what you do have in life. It's a choice. Make the choice. So that was a cool one by Queen Elizabeth II. This one, she says, our modern world places such heavy demands on our time and attention that the need to remember our responsibilities to others is greater than ever. Oh man, isn't this true? You know, at the end of it, when it's all said and done, you know what we are? We're human beings. You know what human beings are supposed to do? They're supposed to help out mankind. They're supposed to help out their brothers. They're supposed to help out their sisters. They're supposed to help out their children, the children of others. They're supposed to help out their elderly, the elderly of others. That's what we're supposed to do. But this world consumes us, engulfs us, and makes us focus on me, myself, my desires, my selfishness, how am I going to get more? How am I going to get more? How am I going to get more? And in the whole midst of that, we lose and we forget our responsibility to others. You know, for those people who recover from substances, the program teaches us that we have a primary purpose. And that primary purpose is to help out the other addict or alcoholic who is still struggling. That's our motto. I always extend that and I say, hey, that's a good start to help out the addict or the alcoholic who is out there still struggling. But I say help out the human, regardless of their addiction or not, that is still struggling. And all of a sudden it goes from this much people to this much people, because there's a lot of people out there struggling. And if you're a family member, one of the things I always preach and talk about, hey, go to Al-Anon, go get a therapist, do some couples work, do some family work, go work on your family dynamics, get a support group. I always talk about that. I've been doing this for years and I say it all the time. But you know what? One of your responsibilities is as a family member to help out the other mom, the other dad, the other spouse, the other grandparent, the other teenager who comes in and the loved one of their life is struggling with drugs and alcohol. You're actually responsible for saying, hey, this is what I've done and this is what's worked for me. Here's my phone number. Call me when you need me. I will pick up the phone. If you want me to take you through the literature, I'll take you through the literature. These are some of the meetings that I go to. These are some of the books that really help me out. This live stream is something that I watch on Saturdays that helps me. You're responsible for that. But in a world that places so much demand on our time and attention, what happens? We only focus on ourselves and our own kid and our own loved one, and we forget our responsibility to those who are also struggling and suffering. So that was a beautiful thing that she taught right there through that word. If anybody has any comments about the stuff I'm saying, feel free to chime in, because it's there's no right and wrong here. If you're new, it's super open-ended. And if you even want to talk about something that I'm not specifically talking about, but it's related to recovery or yourself, feel free to. Always take time to answer and pause. So the next one that she said was short, and she said, I have to be seen to be believed. This one's interesting, and I'm going to relate this one to recovery really well. Okay, I actually like this one a lot. So what she was saying here at the time, and I did a little research on it, everybody in the royal families was wondering, why the heck are you going down to the commoners, the regular people? Why are you getting in these airplanes and flying to these parts of the world that a queen doesn't really go to? Why are you shaking people's hands and hugging them and just like having conversations with people? And she had a really wicked sense of humor. She really did. But she said, I have to be seen to be believed. And what does that really mean? I have to be seen to be believed. She understood and understands that in order for human beings to be able to see her as a human being, she would have to go and be able to touch, feel, move, inspire people on a connected basis. Now, that's something that most people in her position don't do and won't do. But that's something that she did and believed in. And I'll tell you this, when it comes to recovery, okay, just talking about being in recovery isn't enough. God, I love teaching this one in the morning to the program participants. Just talking about recovery, talking about stopping doing drugs, talking about doing the deal is not enough. It's called lip service. It's cheap. You have to be seen doing the recovery. You have to be seen going to the meetings. You have to be seen changing your life around. You have to be seen interacting with people differently, communicating differently, going to different places, doing different things, making different actions. Because when people see it, they're going to start to believe it. And when they believe it and you believe it, that's when life changes. That's where transformation happens. It's a really powerful thing. Live recovery. Yes, it is. It's to live and breathe it. It's just who we are. Like, that's who Jim is. Jim is a representation of recovery. Good, bad, and different. It's what he does. It's who he is. It's how he engages with others. It's the framework that he views the world. It's the social connections that he has. This is actually, he's a historian. Oh, man. Andrew, what's up, dude? I can't break too much confidentiality, but first off, okay, I'm going to say this in a really kind way that puts you up there. So I had a pleasure of meeting Andrew years ago. Well, let's just call it 5 years ago. And back then, one of my passion projects was to be able to take program participants to various places like museums. And I have yet to this day met a human being that knows so much about history and so much passion about history, World War II history, just so much stuff, man. So anything you have, any nuggets, Andrew, feel free to share it. So she also helped her sister with her drinking problems. How cool is that? How cool is that? All right. Well, I kind of did, but you said I could. a fascinating person. I had a chance to work with him. Um, if you have anything you want to share, Andrew, feel free. Andy, feel free. I would love it, and I'm glad you're here. Um, Talk is cheap, action is powerful. Show me, don't tell me. See, everybody likes this. So when you go back to what you said right there, um, I have to be seen to be believed. And by the way, if every family member just related to that right there, you want to know something? That also applies back to you. When you tell your loved ones you're in recovery, you better not just talk about it. You better show with tangible actions. You better show with the way that you change the way you speak. You better show with the way that you change the way you act. You better be seen as someone who's in recovery, or else it's not going to be believed. And Andy right here, hey, you know what? Good luck to you. If you need any type of letters of recommendation, I know you had a big like business career too, corporate career, but if you have any type of letters of recommendation in the academia world, call me, text me, email me. I'll gladly write you something. Okay. What else did the Queen say here? So this is really cool. The Queen said, when life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept defeat. Instead, they are all the more determined to struggle for a better future. Now, if there was a quote that captures the essence of the men and women watching this talk right now, the family members, the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the human beings who either firsthand have struggled with drugs and alcohol or have struggled with addictions through the loved one's addiction, this quote captures who you are as the essence of like your character. When life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept defeat. I know that you did not give up on your loved one. I know you did not accept defeat. I know you didn't. Instead, you got more determined to figure out how am I going to help myself and how am I going to help my loved one so I can have a better future and hopefully they can have a better future. And this is, I think, the essence of recovery. You know, I said this to our program participants. A lot of them who struggle with drugs and alcohol and suffer from mental illness, anxiety, depression, crippling anxiety, depression. Not just the depression that's like, oh, so-and-so's feeling down. So-and-so can't get out of bed because they're so depressed, right? So-and-so, their social anxiety is so bad that they have panic attacks when they go in public, right? To those people who do not give up, to those people who do not lay down and accept defeat, right? This is the essence of it. They become more determined to struggle to find a better future. And that's my hope, is to help people find that better future. Oh, it's coming. I'm not even going to share what Andy said right there. It's coming. I have it ready. Oh, it's the next one. So just we didn't coordinate this. Andy, the historian, said her best quote is grief is the price we pay for love. And that's what I had right here coming. So let me take that one off, Andy. Let me add mine. The reason I did this talk was because of this quote. I swear to God, last night, and that's another thing. When people pass away, people like me or others, you know, they start to look at someone's life, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, this person that I honestly didn't know much about outside watching the TV show on Netflix had some profound things to say. And I don't think anything was more profound than this, to the point that I said, you know, I'm going to make a talk out of this because of this one quote. And it says, grief is the price we pay for love. Oh, man. So we all know what love is. And I hope you've experienced it. So whether it's emotional love, psychological love, physical love, spiritual love, it's just a feeling that it's nice. And unfortunately, we've all lost, right? We've all lost. We've lost people, we've lost things, we lost identities. And when we lose things we love, we go through this process called grief. And this quote, grief is the price we pay for love, really helped me, because there are certain things in my life that I know when I lose, it's going to hurt. There's certain people in my life that I know when I lose, it's going to hurt. But if I can remember this quote and remember this little nugget that she shared with us, and to say that, you know, the price that I'm paying for all of that love that I experienced for those years, this grief is the price tag for that. It's not going to make it much easier, but I'll be able to put some perspective on it and find some peace. I will be able to. So on a personal level, I know that I can thank the queen for teaching me that lesson right there in life, that grief is the price we pay for love. And there's nothing free in life. There's nothing free in life. And grief, by the way, is something, it's real. Some of you are experiencing grief and loss as you're watching this right now. I have a lot of compassion for that. Um, there is no time frame on grief. Sometimes people say, how come I can't just shake it? How come I can't move on? How come it just comes back again? But the other person is not feeling it the way I am. It's just individualized. You have a process you have to go through. And sometimes the deeper you loved, the deeper that grief is going to be experienced. But that love was something special too. And if to be able to remind yourself of that and capture that moment in experience in life is a beautiful thing. Let's see what Jim said over here. Jim said, pain is inevitable. Suffering, however, is an option. That's, it goes back to the whole choice thing. I think, Jim, when you go back to that first quote that I had up there that talked about what we do in life is we focus on the negative. And I think this is another one of those things. You could focus on the pain and work through the pain, or you could just choose to suffer in that pain. And I do believe it's a choice. I really do. And there's a quote that I've shared so many times, maybe not in this group. And it says, when suffering loses its value, the healing process begins. And I do believe that when we suffer from things, not in the moment, not immediately, but when we continue to suffer from it days, weeks, months, years later, and the initial pain is gone, I do believe that we get something out of that suffering. For some people that have addiction problems, like when you have a lot of suffering, every drink of alcohol that goes down your throat, you can rationalize, you can justify, you can validate because of that suffering. You can kind of make sense of it. And yes, yes, Andy, this queen, which is you, taught us a couple other things too. You did. Really good to see you here, man. Feel free to keep coming back. Where are we at right here? I have a 3 or 4 more, I think. The next one, it says, we all need to get the balance right between action and reflection. With so many distractions, it is easy to forget to pause and take stock. So taking stock can also be called taking inventory. Taking inventory is something that the program of recovery strongly recommends and suggests. It's actually one of the 12 steps. Okay. So there's a first, step 4 inventory. And then there's even another inventory when it gets into your character defects and your strengths and your assets. And then there's also an inventory that you do on a daily basis, which is our 10th step. For those of you who don't know what it is, I've shared it a few times. Pretty much when you retire at night, which means when you go to sleep at night, you constructively review your day. Were you resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do you owe an apology to anyone? Do you need to do anything to make anything right? Pretty much is the summary of it. And the Queen talked about this. We all need to find the balance between action and reflection. So there's nothing wrong with being in action all the time. That's what we want. Get into action. Like, don't tell me what you're doing. Show me what you're doing. Where's your actions? Action, 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 action. However, action without reflection could sometimes be dangerous, because sometimes we can end up in places and not know how we got there. The only way you can know if you're on the right course or the right track is if you pause and reflect back and see where you're coming from and see what direction you're headed to. I always say it's impossible to change the tire of a moving car. It is impossible to change the tire of a moving car. And in this scenario, it means to stop the car, put the brakes on, change the tire if needed, get back on the road. But a lot of people just keep going, just keep going and going. So reflection is a powerful thing and a beautiful thing. Let's see what we got here. The next one here is, it has always been easy to hate and destroy. To build and to cherish is much more difficult. This is another one of those that applies to the recovery process. The the process of recovery. So when human beings come into recovery, oftentimes they have a lot of resentments. Now, sometimes there are significant and serious traumas in individuals' lives that not only do they have the right to be devastated, not only were they psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually impacted. Um, and I have a lot of compassion for that. Anybody that's ever talked to me, knows what space I come from and where I come from. That. However, experiences in life oftentimes lead us into very strong feelings that turn into stuff like hatred, right? And and I'm talking about days, weeks, months, years, decades later, right? Decades later. And what that hatred does, it's so easy to hate something that happened in our life that we start to self sabotage happiness. We self sabotage relationships. We self sabotage success. We self sabotage growth. And what do we do with anything that we do build? We destroy it. This happens on a macro level. This happens on an individual level. When there is hatred in our heart, we end up destroying ourselves. It has nothing to do with the other person anymore. We destroy ourselves. To build and to cherish is much more difficult. To be able to say, hey, despite of what I experienced in life, despite of what they did to me, despite of what life did to me, how life treated me, how I was impacted, I will heal and I will build a life for myself. I will build relationships. I will build happiness. I will build self-esteem. I will build confidence. I will build love. I will build. And once you build that and it's yours and you take a sense of ownership in it and pride in it, then you cherish it. That is much more difficult to do. But damn, is it worth it? But damn, is it worth it? What do you got here, Jim? Highway to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to real recovery is paved with positive actions. Yes, I think we're getting the theme here. You know, it's we could be the most well-intentioned people in the world. And some of us actually are well-intentioned. And the real recovery is paved with positive actions. And actually, I'm going to add to that, Jim. Positive thoughts, positive actions, positive people produce positive results. I think that we need to have positive people around us, whether it's in person, whether it's communities like this, whether it's outside support communities, whether it's people you listen to in your headphones and you go on walks or drives. Positivity is needed because some days I don't want to have positive actions. But you know what? Enough positive people around me, they'll lift me up and pull me to that positive direction. So thank you for that. Let's see what we got. We got a couple more here. We may hold different points of view, but it is in times of stress and difficulty that we most need to remember that we have much more in common than there is dividing us. I think this was a lesson that I know 12-step groups really learned this, you know, in the past 4 years, 6 years, whatever you want to call it, when it was kind of the country was a little divisive, kind of still is. And it's very easy to see the differences amongst human beings and say, hey, I think differently than you and I don't agree with you. Therefore, we're not going to get along. When I believe that all human beings, if we're talking about, you know, free thinking and all that kind of stuff, everyone has the right to whatever opinion they have. I truly believe that. And my opinion is not more right than yours, and yours is not more right than mine. It's just mine is mine and yours is yours. And the beauty of something like this is to remember that when we go through adversity, stress, difficulty in a recovery community, is to put all those differences aside and to focus on our primary purpose, which is healing ourselves and helping other people find what we find. Like when someone comes into a room shaking and baking, or someone comes to our treatment program, it doesn't matter what kind of political affiliation they have or what beliefs they have or what thoughts they have. Is our primary purpose is to help that human being heal. And don't ever forget that. You know, don't just go out trying to help people that are exactly like-minded with you and just say, screw everyone else. If someone else needs your help and you can help them, help them. Help them. You know, all the other stuff is just noise. At the end of it, we're all human beings going through a human experience. Who we are and how we think and what we believe in changes anyways throughout time. But at the end of it, we all have these common things. So I really like that about that quote about her. It's just to remember that we have much more in common than there is dividing us. One of the hardest things in communal living, it's being one of the people responsible for a treatment program and housing and all that kind of stuff. You think about it this way. Let's just say there's 5 or 6 houses or 8 houses, and each one of them has 7 to 8 people living inside of them. Everyone's from different parts of the country. Everyone's from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Everyone's from different cultural beliefs, and they've been brought up a different way. To be able to focus on the differences in that community is so easy, right? But the fact that the whole entire thing is kind of sewn through the fabric of recovery puts all those differences aside. I kid you not. I mean, there's a couple staff members watching this. We have this community meeting that happens in our facility. Counselor Tony, which, he took a program directing job somewhere else, left us. But Counselor Tony started the community meeting, and some people watching this have been a part of it. You'd be surprised, man. We got people from all over the country, and it's like they're sitting there a part of something, talking about themselves and recovery and life. And there's no judgment. There's nothing. It's such a beautiful thing. And one thing I'm really proud of at Buckeye Recovery Network, and I really mean this, if you have a chance to go look at our staff page or anything like that, you can see the diversity that exists there from top to bottom. There's so much diversity. And that all of these people have different thoughts and beliefs and backgrounds. But I kid you not, you put us in a room together, you will not know that any one of us, literally, you will not know that any one of us has any other thought or intention besides helping out the human beings that we're helping out. And that's such a beautiful thing, and that her quote right there reminded me of that. Let's see what we got there. Let's see. Eileen, the work sometimes is moving away from the habit of feeling the victim. Yeah, and Eileen, I like how you said moving away from the habit, because at some point, I do believe this, at some point, victims genuinely were victims, especially when this stuff happens in childhood. The problem with that is when we don't do the work to move away from that later on in life, when we actually are not helpless, when we actually do have the ability to heal and recover, that mindset of staying in that victim mentality from the past, it unfortunately negatively impacts our future. Unfortunately. So the work to move from that habit is daily, it's small, it's incremental. And it's a beautiful thing to do that work. Let's see. Jim said that's why he's here every week. Hey man, I appreciate it. That's for sure. It's me and Jim, whatever we believe in this and that, I promise you this, if me and Jim have to sit down in a room together and talk, it's nothing but common, just like this. We flow. It's all about love. It's all about recovery. And I've learned a lot from Jim in my relationship with him. And it's been a very powerful thing for myself in my life, to be honest. Let's see what thanks Andy for all your participation today. Too easy to make put down comments simply to demean the other political side. It goes to help anything but make people feel superior. Yeah, absolutely. That's the other thing. Anything, man. When you think you're better than others, it creates this thing called false pride. It's at the end of the day, it's just an opinion, and it's just a political belief, right? As long as harm is not happening to people, like true harm is not happening to people, anything outside of that, to each their own. That's the beauty of here's the thing. Human beings are able to critically think. So if you critically think and come up with an outcome, and that's your outcome, that's your outcome. My mom, words of wisdom, look at the similarities, not the differences. The first thing I learned in my Al-Anon meeting. This is very important, by the way. Thanks for sharing that, Mom. When my mom, for example, went to Al-Anon, I could talk about her. They walk in there, they don't know what it is. So they walk in there and they just hear parents talking. And as soon as they talk, they're like, my kid's not as bad as their kid. Oh, my family, we went to school and we got educated. They don't look like they're educated. I don't know. It's just, these aren't my people. It's all that kind of stuff. You can go in there and just get really turned off. And this happens, by the way, with human beings, addicts, alcoholics, that go to meetings. And it's like, I'm not as bad as them. It's not for me, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So you focus on the differences. When you focus on the differences, you're going to be walking out the door. But when you sit down and hear a mom talk about how she's lost her health because she stresses so much, or the fact that she is lying to family members about what she's really going through because she's embarrassed or ashamed, or because she doesn't sleep anymore because she's worried at night, or her loved ones taking things from her when he or she never did that before, and that they're feeling like they're the ones going through the addiction when they've never used. The similarities that my mom experienced, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what the hell that person's background is, their socioeconomic status is, or education level is, or none of that shit, because the similarity is the common sense of identification that we achieve. And it's a powerful thing. In the recovery, the playing field is equal. Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. Addiction doesn't discriminate, my friends. It doesn't discriminate against what the hell you believe in or don't believe in. It doesn't discriminate against how much money you got in your pocket or don't have in your pocket. It's all the same. We've done so many biopsych socials in our lives, and it doesn't matter where the hell they're from. At the end result, it's all the same. And I think I have one last one to leave on a positive note. Good memories are our second chance at happiness. I had to read that one a few times. First of all, it was like 2:30 in the morning, so I was losing my shit at that point. But good memories are our second chance of happiness. Sometimes we go through events, and in the real time when it's happening, we don't savor how beautiful it is. We don't know the taste and how amazing it is, right? We just kind of go through it. Sometimes when you look back at those memories, you can actually, in the nostalgia of it, you can soak in the love, joy, gratitude, the appreciation, and it gives you a second chance to have happiness. I was at my parents' house last Sunday, and we were going through family pictures from 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And I started texting my uncle, my dad's brother, and I was sending him these pictures because he was in the pictures. And he's like, oh man, those were such beautiful days and just, good times and this and that. In the time when we were going through it, it was just life. That's what we were doing. But then you look back now and you're like, wow, what a magical time that was in our lives. So good memories, those are all memories. They allow us to have a second chance of the happiness that we sometimes might have missed. So take whatever you want from that. But this was a different talk. Obviously, I definitely haven't done this one before because the queen of a country for 7 decades had not passed away yet for me to do the research on things that she said that may or may not have been beneficial to the recovery world. But I had a lot of fun doing something new, and I hope you did too. I am not 100% sure if I'll be here next week. I'm going to try to, but I can't guarantee it. I'll leave a announcement if I'm not. But 2 weeks from now, I will guarantee be back over here again, and we'll do this family education support group. The Wi-Fi looked like it was perfect. Thank you for all your contributions, new and old. And thanks, Eileen. It was a sweet session. It was Kathleen, you're welcome. Jim, you're welcome. It's fun. I love doing this. I really do, as you can tell. Dan, you're very welcome also. And it was some good memories. So have a wonderful weekend. Make sure you take time to reflect, and don't forget that we're human beings and our primary purpose is to help another human being out. Go help somebody today. All right, everyone. Have a good day.